Trimming a Darky's Heel. In the early days of St. Louis, before the roar of commerce and manufacturers had drowned the free laugh and merry song of the jolly keelboatsmen, those primitive navigators of the Father of Waters tied up their crafts and laid beneath a bluff, which then, 80 feet in height, rose perpendicular to the water's edge in front of the city. On top of the bluff then, as now, a number of doggeries, drinking places, held forth their temptations to the hardy navigator, and they were often the scene of the wildest kind of revelry. At that time, Mike Fink, the chief among the keelboatsmen, was trading to St. Louis, and he frequently awoke the inhabitants by his wild freaks and daredevil sprees. Mike was celebrated for the skill with which he used the rifle, then the contestant companion of Western men. It was his boast that he could best shoot what he'd have in mind with his Betsy. He was familiarly termed his shooting iron, and his companions, for the pleasure of noting his skill, or exhibiting of it to some stranger, would often put him to the severest kind of tests. One day, while laying upon the deck of his boat below the St. Louis bluff, with 2 or 3 companions, the conversation turned upon Mike's last shot, and one of the party ventured opinion that his skill was departing. This aroused the boatmen into a controversy. From their conversation might be learned the manner of the shot which was the subject of dispute. It was thus. One of the party, at a distance of 100 yards, had placed a tin cup between his knees, and Mike had at a distance toward the center of the cup. "I swear I don't hold that cup again for you, Mike," remarked the doubter. "There's a delicatest kind of tremble coming in your hand. For some of your days, you'll miss the cup clear." "Miss Thunder!" shouted Mike. "Why, you constarn corn dodger mill, it is war that you are the trembles, and when I get the bets and wake and fetch, you squatted us in a bark of war again, I'll bite you." "Oh, well," was the reply, "there's more'n one way of getting out of a skunk hole, and if you can pass the trembles off on me, why, you can pass, that's all. I ain't going to trust you with the side of my paddles again in 100 paces, that's certain." "Why, you scurry varmint," answered Mike, bouncing to his feet and reaching for Betsy, which stood by the cabin door of the boat. "Just pint at musketeers, 100 yards, and I'll nip off the right hinder claw and second gent, and before he can don't." "Hit a musketeer, ha! That's a tantalizing response from the others. "Why, you couldn't hit the hinder part of that nigger's heel upon our bluff, without danging the bone, and that ain't no shoot to crow about." The negro referred to was seated at the very edge of the bluff, astride from a flour barrel, with one hook hanging over the edge. The distance was over 100 yards, but Mike instantly raised his rifle with the remark, "I'll just trim that feller's heel so he can wear a decent boot," and off went Betsy. The negro jumped from his seat and yelled with pain, as if, indeed, the whole heel had been trimmed off. And Mike stood a moment with his rifle, listening to the negro's voice, as it was endeavoring to define the sound, whether he was just really seriously hurt. Unless a boatman who had been doubting Mike's present skill remarked, "You can leave now, Mike, for that Darky's master will be after you in a sharp stick." And then he further added as a taunt, "I know Betsy was feeling her nigger bones just as the way you hold her." Mike now became a little wrathy, and appeared inclined to use his bones for his tormentor, and some of the others advised him to hold on, that he would have a chance to exercise them upon the constable. In a short time an officer appeared with a warrant, but as soon as Mike looked at him, he gave up the thought of either flag or resistance, and quietly remarked to his companions that the officer was a clever fellow, a smart hoss in a fight. "The only way you can work him is if a fool," said Mike, "and he's a weasel in the business itself." The warrant was produced by the officer and read to the offender, who signified his assent to the demand of the body, and told the representative of the law to lead the way. He did so. When about to step off to the boat, he cast his eyes back, supposing that Mike was following him, yet a little suspicious. The movement was a prudent one, for he discovered that the tail of Mike's hunting skirt was a little moment and the owner was retreating to the little cabin at the rear of the boat, which was immediately locked from the inside. All the boatmen, as if by previous concert, began to leave their craft, bearing way to the shoulder, leaning loose implement lying around. with which the entrance of the cabin could be forced. The officer paused a moment, and then went to the cabin door, which he commenced persuading the offender to open, and save him the trouble of forcing it. He received no answer, but heard a double rustling within, and letting out impatience, he remarked aloud, "Well, if you don't open the door, I can burn you out," and commenced striking a fire with the pocket tinderbox. The door immediately flew open, and there stood the boatman in Mike's dress. But it wasn't Mike. "You are after me, as you cuss?" inquired the boatman. The officer, without reply, stepped inside the small cabin and looked around. There appeared to be no place to hide a figure as large as Mike, and there was a fellow dressed like him. The thought immediately came undermost in the officer's mind that the offender had changed coats outside while his back was turned to go off the boat, and one of the parties had walked off with Mike in disguise. He was about to step out when a moccasin-covered heel sticking out of a hole in a large mattress attracted his attention. When he touched the heel, vanished, and he put his hand to feel, and Mike burst out a hoarse laugh. "Quit your tickling," he cried. "Consarn your cunning picture, I'm Jim with a start of struggle." The other boatman now joined the laugh and helped the officer to pull Mike out of his hiding place. He had changed his garments inside the cabin without it outside. The crowd of the boatmen had also gathered around, and they all adjourned to the bluff, where, after taking drinks, they started talking about the magistrate's office, who, by the way, was one of the early French settlers. "Oh-ha!" he exclaimed, as the party entered the door. "Here is the men of the boat, raising the diable once more time. I shall not know what to do with them. My God, what is the matter now?" "Oh, Squire," broke in Mike, "I've just come up to the colonel and collect the small bills off you." "You shall collect the bill for me?" inquired the justice. "What for you do the city good to the amount of one bill? Aha! You kick up your heel and raise the batter, the salt in the whole town with your noise, so much that we never get some sleep in the night." All eagerly gathered around to hear what Mike would reply, for his having a bill against the justice was news to the crowd. "You just hit the punch, Squire," said Mike, "when you said that your word heel. I want you to pay me for trimming the heel of one of your town niggers. I just altered his bed, and altered us posterity wore the neatest kind of a boot." The boatman burst into a yell of laughter, and the magistrate in corresponding state of wrath. He sputtered French and English in such rapidity that it was impossible to understand either. "Leave the court, you rascals of the boat!" shouted the squire above the noise. "Allez-vous, vous sois! I shall never have nothing with you, if you have treated the court with grand contempt." The boatman, well, all but Mike, had retired to outside the door, where they were all still laughing, when Mike again, with a sober, solemn phiz, remarked to the squire, "Well, Dad, if you always raise heel, you little laughing, that's done in your court. But I'll be cussed if I can get you more of my cases." Another roar from the boatman hailed his remark. "Constable, close the court, this one instant, right away. The sacre diable de l'Alzheimer. Know nothing about how to treat with the law. I shall have nothing to do with the whole of you as you call the rolls." "I ain't going to stand any more of such law as this," remarked Mike. "Consarn my picture if I don't leave the town." "Go to the devil!" cried the magistrate. "I won't," said Mike. "Maybe it's just another French Jesus." Amid the torrent of words and laughter, Mike retreated to his boat, where he paid the officer for his trouble, and sent a handful of silver to the darky to extract the pain from his short heel.